Hey guys, and welcome back to this video series on the AP Comparative course. Today we'll be discussing the ideas of relationships between citizens, society, and to start off, we'd like to discuss the concept within the introduction to culture as well what
let's start off with the citizen to society interaction, mostly seen in social cleavages.
Political change as well as the people
social
and
cleavages
support
are an
of the
important
people
part
to
between
change.
citizen-state interactions.
Now, what political culture is a collection of political beliefs, values, practices, and institutions the government itself is based
these
on.
cleavages are divided into three different types: social class,
within political
ethnic,
culture
and
between
regional.
government and the people.
Social class
is how
cleavages
political culture
are
is
most
measured.
evident in
Political
developing
culture
countries
is measured in terms of social capital,
and wealthy
which is a
landowners.
trust that exists
The most
among
relevant
citizens
example of
and
this
between
would be
citizens and the state.
Conflicts
Now,
within
in states
central
with
China
low
as
social
well as
capital,
the conflicts
the
in
government
northern
may be
Mali.
more leaning towards an
The
authoritarian
second type
regime.
is the
In
ethnic
states with high
cleavages.
social
Ethnic
capital,
cleavages are
the state itself
extremely
may lean
potent
towards a
and occurs
democratic
on
regime.
all economic levels, from peasants to the wealthiest
Now,
landowners.
political culture
the
can be split into two different types.
These cleavages
The
are actually
first is
caused by
consensual.
language and
Within
cultural
the consensual
differences,
political
and
culture,
the effects
the people
are
agree on
clearly
the general
exemplified
policy,
in
and they
the
may
Slavic
disagree
wars
on
and
implementation,
African wars
but
in the
overall
latter
they
half of
agree
the
on the
20th
general
century.
policy.
Basically,
The best example
ethnic
of this
cleavages
would be
cause
the Falklands
drastic
Islands War
tensions
in
within the country
1982 between
by
Great Britain and
separating the
Argentina,
people
or
by
specifically
ethnicity,
towards
leading to
domestic
internal conflict
attitude
and
within
eventually
Great Britain.
fragmentation of the
The
country.
second type of political culture is conflictual.
The third type is
Within
regional.
a conflictual
Regional
political
cleavages
culture,
occur
the people
where
actually
different
divided and
geographical
support the
regions
general
have different
policy.
attitudes
And
and
when
political
this happens,
values.
the
This
regime
leads to
itself
increased
loses
competition
legitimacy.
for government resources.
Best example would
modern
be
day
Vietnam
examples
War
are
in terms
the
of the United
secession
States
of
home.
Biafra from Nigeria and the civil war within
The link
Nigeria
between political
as a
culture
direct
and
result
change
of regional
is that
cleavages.
political culture
Now, social
directly
cleavages
leads
as a
to a
whole
more
can be
liberal
divided into
political
two different
ideology,
categories.
which directly to change I
The
will
first
discuss later.
is coinciding. Now, coinciding cleavages,
Political ideology.
meaning that the
What
same
political
exact
ideologies
group
are is a
will
set of
oppose
political
each other
values held by
on
individuals
every
regarding the
single
basic
issue.
goals of government and policy.
Cross-cutting,
And there
on the
are
other
four
hand,
common types:
means that
liberalism,
groups who could be
communism,
allies on one issue
socialism, and
could
fascism.
as easily be opponents on
Now,
a separate
within
issue.
political
Basically,
ideologies,
coinciding
religion
is
plays a
clear-cut
huge
lines,
part
while
because it serves
cross-cutting
as a
is
basis
a
for
really
interest groups and
muddled up
political parties,
alliance
as well
opposition
as help
system.
shape the beliefs and views of the citizens.
Now, how do we evaluate citizen-state relationships?
Let's look at liberalism first.
There are
Within
six different ways we
liberalism
do this. The
political
first
ideology,
is attitudes and
freedom is
beliefs.
valued over equality.
Now, the way we measure
And
attitudes and beliefs is
there's
through
idea that
political
the people
efficacy.
can disagree with the state
Political
and act
efficacy
change
is the
decisions.
degree to which
So
citizens
basically,
understand
they don't
and
require
can
everyone to be
influence
equal,
political
but they
policy.
do require
Now,
everyone's
high level of
constitutional and
political
inalienable
efficacy means that
natural
the
rights
government
to
takes citizens'
guarantee
input
above all
seriously,
else.
and that the citizens' input actually has an
Look at
impact on
communism.
the government.
Communism
A
is the
low
exact
level of
opposite, where
efficacy, on the other hand, means that
equality
the citizens
is
are
greater
either
than
very
freedom.
ignorant of political
Now,
policy,
they believe
or
in
the government
the
simply
idea of the
does not
ultimate
care about what the
utilitarianism,
citizens
which is
think within the
prosperity
state
for the
itself.
majority.
The
Because
second
they believe that
second way
regardless
we
of any
measure
regime, inevitably the ruling
second
elite
way
will
we measure
emerge,
citizen-state
and the ruling
relationships
elite
is
will
through
serve
political
only to promote
socialization.
the interests
Now, political
of the
socialization
ruling
is
elite.
how citizens learn about the
Now,
political process.
they believe that
This can be split into
to
three
prevent
different
this,
levels.
the
At the
communist
deepest
political
level,
ideology
people
emphasizes
identify and
the
bond
idea
to
of
common
taking over all
identities
the
and beliefs
resources by
within
the
the state.
to
At the
ensure
medium
even
level, people
distribution
actually develop
across
their
the
own
population.
opinions regarding their country's
Interestingly,
politics.
they actually view
And at the
themselves
most
as the
superficial
true
level,
democracy,
people simply
is where
see
everyone
and
is
hear about
truly
current events
equal.
and controversial political topics.
The third type
So
is
take
more
the
of a
United States, for
compromise.
example. The deepest
Socialism
level
is
would be
where
bonding to the
equality is
American
important,
identity.
but
And the
freedom is
medium
also
level would
important.
be
Now, they
joining
believe the
or
idea
supporting
of free
political
market,
parties' interest
but
groups.
it's not completely
And
lost
the
its
superficial
faith, as
level
they
would
believe
be
that the state
watching
has
the
to be
daily
obligated
news.
to facilitate the free market.
Third way
so the
we evaluate
ideas
this
and the horrors that the communist
the third
ideology
way we
believes
evaluate this
doesn't actually take place.
relationship is
The
through
fourth type
types
is
of political
fascism.
participation.
Fascism
In
is
authoritarian
unfair
regimes, citizens commonly
in that it
interact
doesn't
with
value freedom or
activities
equality.
that stress
In
heavy
fact, it values
obedience.
the idea of a social
and
ladder where there's a chain of
Common examples of
hierarchy
this are
based
obeying
on
laws,
ethnicity,
following
religion,
orders,
social
paying
class, whatever.
taxes.
But
Or
there's
in democracies,
this idea of
citizens
social
play a much more
inferiority and
active
social
role
superiority.
through
And
activities
they
such
also
as
believe that the
voting,
government's
contributing to political
duty to mold
campaigns,
society
or
and the
joining
economy
political
to
parties.
fit their idea of the social ladder.
Now, the
change
fourth
itself can
method
be
is
split into three
voting
different
behavior
types.
of the citizens.
First, there's a more
fifth
most
method
modern type,
is
reform, where some
the
of
factors that
the
influence political
government
beliefs
is
and
changed,
behaviors,
usually
namely
through a
social
very
cleavages, which we have
gradual,
just
moderate
discussed. process.
And the final method
Now,
is
the revolutions, on the other hand,
now, transparency is the level to which governments
change.
operate openly by keeping citizens informed.
Which is the complete
so low levels
of
are actually
leadership.
commonly associated
However,
with authoritarian regimes because they don't trust the people.
Further coup d'etats.
On the other hand, the high level of transparency is directly correlated to democratic
towards
regime.
change can be also split
Aside
into
from
four different
the correlation to regimes,
versus radicalism,
there's also a correlation to
rapid,
corruption.
dramatic change.
The level of transparency is inversely correlated with the level of corruption.
Which is the
if there's a low level of
transparency,
there will be a high level of corruption, such as in countries like in China and Russia.
Change at all, which means
in countries with high level of transparency, there will be a low amount of corruption, such as in Great Britain.
Fourth type is reactionary, which is
now let's move on to
the extreme
relationship between citizens and society.
Not only is change not good, but the change is from the past to the status quo isn't good.
So in order to make
the perfect society, you have to remove the status quo. Now, social movements towards the original society.
It's a collective
activity in a revolution.
Are organized collective activities that try to bring about fundamental change in society as a whole.
And reaction are have the most tendency
usually
towards
occurs
violence,
through influencing political leaders,
and conservatism being more gradual.
Common day examples are the civil rights movement and
there are three
ending
major
of the apartheid in South Africa.
Democratization, movement towards
in many
economic
cases,
liberalism,
social movements don't actually succeed,
and the revival
such as
of
the
ethnic or cultural
politics. In Budapest,
now, in the previous videos, we discussed the idea of globalization and fragmentation.
They still drastically influence political opinion within the region.
Examples of globalization.
Common example of
the third is the example of fragmentation.
Influence would be the pre-American Civil War abolitionist movement, which even though failed,
democratization basically is the idea of universal
political opinion,
regular
and help fragment the country leading to the Civil War.
Basically, try to make themselves as close to the liberal democracy
is the idea of a civil society.
Now, liberal democracy.
Civil societies are voluntary organizations that go beyond the state level.
There's civil liberties, which is believed in the sanctity of freedom of speech, religion, as well as assembly,
or ethnic interest.
The second part
on the state level itself, though, civil society actually checks the power of the state
equal treatment for all citizens as well as the process.
Basically, civil society keeps checks and balance on the idea of the perfect utilitarian regime.
The idea that the judiciary serves to check as checks and balances
as a whole
on both the legislative and executive.
In the early 21st century, civil societies have actually
moved idea is the idea
beyond regional and state levels
all
towards
citizens can lead
global
civil society. Mass media
now, the modern examples are
independently
groups
from
such as MSC International,
so that the government cannot cloud the vision of the people as well as violate the rights of the people.
The ultimate direction that
the
fifth global society has
is global cosmopolitanism, where by controlling the military, this restricts the likelihood of the military physically seizing control of the government.
That bases both identity and values from around
democracy is also called substantive democracies, and
this idea will be the ultimate version of the United Nations.
However,
where
many
advanced
democracies
power around the world,
very close,
and its beliefs
and
its identity is formed from every single constituent.
Now, illiberal democracies.
Now, the reaction to civil societies is actually quite different.
Democratic procedures
it's tolerated in democracies, actually celebrated in democracies.
First, presidents have a disproportionate power, and legislators are less able to check executive power.
What the civil society does is it weakens
Federation in the reign of Vladimir Putin.
It weakens the state itself by keeping checks and balances on the state. So, authoritarian regimes view society as a major threat. However,
the final idea is the presence of a procedural democracy necessary for the development of a substantive democracy.
In any type of authoritarian regime. The best example would be the
illiberal democracies have restrictions
Soviet Union during the Cold War, where despite heavy religious oppression, the Russian Orthodox Church remained
transform into liberal democracies.
Now, civil societies actually have a bit of an issue within developing nations.
Democratization is caused by
this can be clearly seen in the fact that because there's high corruption and less response from the citizens,
promoting
civil societies are dramatically
weak, power into their own hands,
and their hold on society versus democracy is
also
to a much lesser degree than it would be in developing countries.
Best example would be
what makes civil society.
The
cause of civil society is civil
bourgeoisie, when the middle class, the merchants got the power, and feel like they have to have the right.
The one telltale factor that civil societies are growing and developing and strengthening is the increased involvement of women in non-governmental organizations,
on human rights,
such as Amnesty International or
of the sanctity and necessity of human rights.
So this concludes this
the snowball effect,
episode
which is
of
the concept similar to the domino
introduction
effect,
to AP Comparative Government.
when neighboring
Join us
countries
next time when we look at political and economic change.
democracies,
As always,
they would
if you have any
likely
questions
to
or
influence
any
their
source
neighbor
material of
into
any
becoming
kind,
democracy
please
as well.
contact Cameron Devers.
And finally, this idea with an authoritarian
Thank you and have a
regimes
nice
of a
day.
trigger event, which can be represented in a massive recession or military defeat, where the authoritarian regime loses legitimacy and the people take the power into their own hands. Okay, how democratization takes place is a very key process. First of all, there's democratic consolidation, which is a willingness of the political elite to share power with the people. Basically, it's a transition between authoritarian regimes and to illiberal democracies. Then, there's the idea of democratic liberalization, which is a shift from illiberal or procedural democracies to substantive or liberal democracies. And democratization has been seen in three major waves. First wave is the gradual process that created democracies in the modern world, best seen through Great Britain and France, so forth, so forth. The second wave is post-World War II, and it's marked by massive decolonization by all the world powers. The third and final wave is the turn of the century between 20th and 21st century, which is marked by the overthrow of despots such as within Libya, Iraq, Afghanistan, and so forth. Now the second trend, movement towards economic liberalism and market economies. Now the roots of both market and command economies can be found in pre-20th century Europe. Market economy is seen through bourgeoisie within 18th century Europe, namely in Great Britain, where to promote their profits, they emphasize and support the idea of a laissez-faire economy where the government has absolutely no control. Command economy, on the other hand, can be seen through the ideas by Karl Marx in 19th century Europe, where due to the threat that communist ideology perceives, the only logical solution is a command economy where the state controls all areas of the economy. Now, as of today, none of the original command economies, such as Soviet Union or China, exist, thanks to the idea of economic liberalization brought on through enhanced globalization. Now, business cycle. Within market economy, which is pure laissez-faire, there will inevitably be the occurrence of a major business cycle. Now, the business cycle is the privatization, which is basically cycles of prosperity and scarcity. Basically, you can perceive market economies as a wave, where at the peak of each wave, that is where the economy is at its best, but inevitably it will drop to the lowest point, but it will come back up. So this constant wave of prosperity, of scarcity, of inflation and recession always occurs in market economies. Now, mixed economies, on the other hand, which is a mixture between command and market, lowers the impact or the consequence of such a wave due to the fact that the government has a lot of control within the economy itself. And the final aspect and final trend, the revival of ethnic and cultural politics. This directly leads to fragmentation because it increases the ideas of loyalty to one's culture, one's country, as opposed to global unity. Now, this also leads to fragmentation because it emphasizes differences over commonalities. When one person gains an increased loyalty to their ethnicity as opposed to country, then the loyalty can lead to fragmentation within the region. That's seen in Slavic wars in the late 1900s. Now, currently, the College Board, as well as most political scientists, view the world through several regions based on their ethnic loyalties, and these regions are the West, which composes of Europe and North America, the Orthodox world, which composes of Russia and the former communist Soviet bloc. The Islamic countries comprise of Middle Eastern countries as well as North Africa. Latin American world, which comprises of Latin America, Africa, which comprises of Sub-Saharan Africa, the Hindu world, which comprised of the Indian subcontinent as well as surrounding countries, and finally the Confucian world, which comprised of Japan, Korea, China, Singapore, and the Oriental countries. So, to wrap up, today we discussed the ideas and link between political culture and political change. We've discussed political ideologies as well as reactions to change and what changes are. And finally, we discussed what the three trends to political change are: democratization, the shift to market economies, and finally, the revival of ethnic or cultural politics. So join us next time when we're discussing the final part to the introduction to comparative politics, comparative government, public policy. As always, if you require any source material or any help, please contact Cameron Devers, Lizzie Zudock, or Zach Zhao through Facebook or email. Thank you. Have a nice day.